motivated you to start the New York Academy?
So many schools talked about project-based learning and learning by doing, but I felt like it was more of a jargon.
Can discipline be taught?
You can never ever teach a child to do something that they don't like.
You're a mother of 4 wonderful children. So any parenting tips that you can give?
I am not a helicopter mom.
You face some online trolling. How do you deal with that?
I was told that I couldn't have children naturally. So we decided the IVF route. I almost died during that pregnancy because...
Do you think that in India we moved forward?
Even American education is redundant.
You are wife of Viranica Manchu.
He is a guy who pampers me and says, hey, you know what? I want some me time with you. Let's go for a meal in Bombay.
One skill that you would like to learn in 2024?
I'm a disaster in the kitchen. When you're able to focus on positives, there's no space for negative.
Hi everyone, my dear becauseshecan family, and welcome you all to our another amazing, enriching conversation. Today, our guest is Viranica Manchu, who is a visionary entrepreneur and educator, renowned for her role as the founder and director of New York Academy, Hyderabad. Alongside, she has successful ventures in the fashion industry with the brand of Maison and label Vida. Married to entrepreneur and Telugu film star Vishnu Manchu, Viranica effortlessly juggles her roles as a wife and mother to 4 wonderful children. Let's welcome Viranica Manchu. Starting with taking you back to your times and want you to know how young Viranica was as growing up.
So most of my childhood was in the US. I was born in New York. I was very attached to my grandparents and, I wanted to spend a couple of years in between with my grandparents here in India. So I did spend like about 4.5 years of my early childhood here. So I was between Chennai and Hyderabad. And so then I went back to America. I finished my school there in Philadelphia. Then I went to college in New York. I graduated from NYU. And then shortly after, I came to India for like an internship, kind of like a practical experience. And that's when I met my husband. And then I never moved back to America. So here I am.
That's amazing. So he brought you back to India.
Yes.
But having said that, you're coming from an educational family, and you started the New York Academy. And when I was researching about it, I saw it spoke a lot about social values, progressive learning. What motivated you to start the New York Academy?
So, having been exposed to the best that education has to offer, whether it was in India or it was in the US, when we had our own children, I did a lot of extensive research on schools and, what education was like in India at that point of time. And shockingly, it was still like where we left off so many years ago. It hadn't evolved. So many schools talked about project-based learning and learning by doing, but I felt like it was more of a jargon when children are so impressionable. By the age of like 6, they start to pick up habits, patterns, their interests start to evolve. So that like early childhood is very, very important for a child. As a parent myself and my husband, we were just wanting to be doubly sure that we gave them an environment that would be conducive to it. And when we couldn't find something, and having come from an educational background myself and my husband also from a similar field, in the education industry for like 30 plus years, his family. We said it was just an organic sort of a evolution in our life that, we would start a school.
What are the things that set you apart from other institutes like that?
There are a handful of schools that are inclusive, and we pride ourselves on being an inclusive campus. And what I mean by this is, when we have special needs children or specially able children, instead of separating from the classroom or not giving them admission saying, oh, this is not the right place for you, we bring them into our mainstream program, and we, as educators, create an environment for them to thrive. So we're not taking them out. We're not saying, okay, you're here for this class, and then majority, like 70% of your class, we're moving you into, special needs classroom per se. We don't do that. We involve them into the mainstream learning program, because that's how life is, right? Like there's no special, quotas for different things. Like you just have to learn to live all the challenges life throws at you. And, how are you able to make the best of it? How are you able to be dynamic to those challenges? The advantage of doing this is, the child themselves are able to get a taste of the real world, and we're equipping them for future successes. And while their peers, on the other hand, learn to be empathetic to, people of all different backgrounds, whether it is culturally, whether it is physically, whether it's emotionally, they're able to be a little bit more supportive of their peers.
So, for example, if you have a student who's, let's say, visually impaired, do you have special teachers, or the curriculum is designed according to them, or they study exactly the same pattern?
So we actually worked very closely with an organization an American organization that supported children who were, it was a home for children who were left at birth by parents, children often found at like dumpsters or like, just left unattended, and, because of different, disabilities they had, and the parents, I guess, didn't have the means to raise them or whatever. And, those were the children that this organization used to work with. And we used to have a few students that came from that organization where you were talking specifically about vision impairment. So one of the child couldn't see, but she was included in the program. The gift that they have is that, when one sense is sort of like kind of
other senses
diminished, the other senses make up for it, right? So it's like, so this child was exceptional, exceptional singer, exceptionally talented. She used to play the piano. It was just so beautiful to see. But, when it came to actual reading and, we had to have Braille for her. Obviously, all our teachers are not equipped to, teach in Braille or that format. So in a situation like that, we hired a shadow teacher that could supplement some of those things, but we never removed the child from the classroom. She kind of like blended into our mainstream program. Here I am talking about 5-year-olds, right? Imagine. And, the other kids are holding her hand and taking her and making sure
nice.
And those are the values that you kind of have to teach children. I mean, not teach is the wrong word, inculcate in them.
Yes.
Because you can
absolutely.
you can never ever teach a child to do something that they don't like. So that's why we say we inculcate a love for learning, and that comes naturally.
Yes. In your opinion, can discipline be taught?
We live in a world that advocates freedom in so many aspects, but what is freedom without respect? Here we teach them to be respectful, because at a young age, you have to mold a child. You have to tell them, these are the set of guidelines. Our teachers are like their friends. In fact, our children hate going back home. They're like,
wow.
it's a struggle. Usually it's the other way around, right? When you're dropping your child off, they just don't want to go. But our children, like, we have a lot of parents, expat and Indian parents, that say that, why do you have a break? Like, what am I going to do with our child? So even during breaks, we make sure there's some sort of camps that the children are engaged. So those parents that want to send their children to school, we have that. So coming back to discipline and respect and stuff like that, when you teach a child to voice their opinions, and then you're able to say, we never say it's right or wrong. We always say, oh, why do you think that is? We try to reason with them. You kind of mold them into making the right decisions based on reasoning. Okay, why did she ask me not to touch that? Or why did she ask me to come back to the circle time instead of running around everywhere in the classroom? Why is my teacher telling me that? So it's not that you cannot do it. Why shouldn't you do it?
All right. And for the values, do you think role modeling is important?
Oh, 100%. And that's where like parent partnership works. We always discuss this as educators with our parent community too, saying that, whatever we're doing in school is fine. But if there's something, we see some abnormal behavior in a child, or, it's very important to model that sort of a positive reinforcement at home as well as in school. So
So true.
a child only like mimics what their surrounding is. If they sense fear,
Absolutely.
they will always lash out in, being protective. They'll build their walls. But if you show confidence and there's no right or wrong, and let them be, right? Let them do their thing. Instead of saying, don't do this, don't do that, However, tell them why you shouldn't be doing something. Or,
Yes.
okay, why did you act that way? It hurt me. What does their action have? What kind of a repercussion does it have on the other person? Help them understand. And children are very capable of understanding. I think we underestimate children. We underestimate their potential. I mean, my 4-year-old can express and articulate their feelings in a way that I haven't seen, many. And children are evolving.
So that pushes me to a question. You're a mother of 4 wonderful children. So what are, let's say, 3 parenting tips that you can give? You've given a few already, but a few, if you can give it to our listeners, that'll be really nice.
So I am not a helicopter mom.
Okay.
I believe in giving the
Nothing against helicopter moms.
I like to give them the freedom to choose. And if I'm able to support them, I do. And if I'm not able to support them, I say, look, that is not my field of expertise, but if this interests you, I will find a way of helping you. I think the biggest thing is when you give them the freedom to do their own thing, while carefully, sort of monitoring them from a distance, but not like,
Right.
don't do this, don't do that, they figure out, and they're not afraid of your parenting style. Oh, what will mom say if she finds out? Oh, don't tell mom. Instead, even the smallest of things, whether it is wrong or right, my children tell me. And if it means that they're going to get a little bit of a serious talk, they will. But they're not afraid to disclose anything to me. They don't come and say, oh my God, how am I going to be reprimanded if I tell mom this? And that's so important. Like, I like to think of our relationship as a friendship.
Amazing. I was listening to one of your interviews, since we are talking a little personal stuff here, wherein your father said that Viranica transitioned from what she was before marriage to somebody different after marriage. Can we know that story, please?
I think from my father's point of view, being the only child, he's like, oh, he was a bit skeptical. Like, how are you, going to go from being the only child? You had the room, the freedom, going into a family where it's a joint family. And then my husband has siblings too. Again, like most of my life, I lived in the US. My husband's family is like from India, quite conservative in their way. And so he was a bit surprised that I was able to adapt.
That's really interesting. So you are a public figure. You are wife of Viranica Manchu also, who is in the eyes of all the paparazzi and everything. Do you face some online trolling, or how do you deal with that?
I think, being in the public eye, there's good, bad, ugly. I mean, why public? Your own family gossips, when your family, extended family, friends, that's just the world we live in. You just have to deal with it. Like, I mean, I don't let it faze me at all, because I'll give you one example. The only time I think I was trolled in my life was when we announced our pregnancy with my 4th child. I think that was the only time I was a bit affected. So the thing is, we announced that our 4th child was on the way, and immediately there was this whole debate in the comment section that, what do you guys think you guys are doing? Do you guys have anything better to do? Don't you see the population like growing? You guys are contributing to. I'm like, listen, you have no clue about what my story is, what my journey has been. Who are you to comment on my life? I could have very easily said that, but it's like, people are people. They have no preview what's going on with our lives. So why why give them that space in our life? We have a very busy life. Our life is full of challenges, and it's never easy. We have businesses that we run. We have 3 young children, and I'm pregnant. And the last thing I want to hear is somebody telling me off. So it's like, you know what? I'm not going to let it bother me. And I quickly snap out, because if I had to justify, I don't think anybody would have a better story than me. But I don't have a reason to justify to anybody, because it's my life. When you're able to focus on positives, there's no space for negative.
Yeah. So how did this actually happen? Like, it's beautiful to have a family with 4 children, and I assume the first 2 were the twins.
Yes.
So how did that happen?
So that's what it is. I was told, very early on in my marriage, that I couldn't have children naturally. And that was regarding, it was some DNA thing. And they were like, oh, but, you can always go the IVF route. But even IVF is just brushed off. Oh, it's a treatment available. Oh, it's as if, it's an answer for everything, but it's not. It actually takes a huge toll on your body. Your physical body, I'm not talking about the shape and size of it, but how you feel, like what hormones your body produces after one cycle of IVF never comes back. So we decided that, we do want to have children, and let's go the IVF route. And I was one of those lucky people to have conceived during my first round of IVF, and it was twins. But even that, I almost died during that pregnancy, because I was allergic to a supplement that they were giving me, and no one could figure it out. And that caused congestive heart failure for me into my first pregnancy. I was in the US. I had a team of 40 doctors visiting me. It was the main doctor and all these med students visiting me every day, every few hours. And they were like, okay, wait, what's going on with our body? Let's try to eliminate. And then we realized that, progesterone is, of course, a hormone that's naturally formed in our body. They realized that I was allergic to the progesterone supplement they were giving me. And I was only the 6th reported case.
Oh my God.
Having gone through such a traumatic experience, I had my twins. The rest of my pregnancy was a song and a dance. I carried my twins to term, 40 weeks. I delivered them. And then I went through a bout of postpartum depression. It's like, I don't know if it was the withdrawal of the symptoms or the trauma that I went through at the beginning of my pregnancy. But, everybody's journey is different, but we all have our challenges. And when random people come up and say to you, like, why do you have your 4th child? What do you think? Do you know my story? Do I have to explain to you my story? Those ups and downs are your strength. They kind of make you who you are. So, who's anyone to comment on them? My second pregnancy as well was IVF. And, I gave myself time to heal, I think. It took 6 years before we attempted to, go that route again. And then I had my child, and within 18 months, I delivered my 4th child. So, and the last one was completely natural. Wow. Here I was told that I can medically never have children naturally on my own.
Amazing.
And then the 4th one came around, completely natural. So what am I going to say to that?
And then you're being sold for that, wherein this is one of the most beautiful story of love. That's really inspiring too.
It's a miracle.
Yes, it's a miracle.
And that's
really
the beauty of life, right?
So true. You are a big name in fashion industry now. And with your brand called Maison, you are doing globally beautifully. What was the turning point coming from education to this fashion? Like, what was the bug that bit you inside?
So I was always a creative person. And even as a child, in my initial years of schooling, I always thought I wanted to be a doctor. And I literally slogged to get into the best medical programs in the world. And then very early on, within a semester of into pre-med, I said, I don't think that involved me working in the hospital for almost 2 years during my high school. I would go to the tailors with my mom and just say, pick out fabrics and say, I want this embroidery and I want this dress to be made. And so I think
Oh,
that's
wow.
always there in me.
Uh-huh.
And when I switched gears from medicine to marketing, I did my specialization in fashion marketing
Mm-hmm.
in New York. And, I interned at New York Fashion Week. So fashion was a part of my educational journey as well.
So your resilience comes from your mother. It seems
Yes,
so.
it
Mhm.
does. She's extremely fierce, extremely resilient.
So having said that, you see the rapid advancements in the artificial intelligence and the technology, and especially its impact on education sector.
Mhm.
So do you think we should adapt it immediately? We should walk along with it or have some alternative to it?
Listen, there is no getting away from it. Absolutely not, because that is the future. We have just started a program where we introducing machine learning for children in school.
Oh, wow. Very nice. Okay.
You have to teach children how to be responsible with technology. You can't say you can't use it. Why can't you use it? You have to let them know. Okay,
Right.
you can't use it as a shortcut. But if somebody goes on ChatGPT, a very bad example, but if somebody goes on ChatGPT and sends me some letter, I know, I'm like, this is not you. You didn't even take time and effort to write a
Write
proper
it down. True.
or make a different presentation based on your thoughts. You had to go to ChatGPT. You can tell. But even if you have to use like something, a resource like ChatGPT effectively, you have to learn how to give it the right commands and how do you make it your own.
Mm-hmm.
It only can kind of map out, it gives you some sort of guideline, but it
But not an output.
needs to
Yes.
come from you, otherwise it's very generic. So how do there's so many tools and there'll be so many more tools. You can't say you have to write with a pen and paper, because who does that
You have
today?
to evolve. Yes.
You have to
Absolutely.
evolve. In school, that's our motto. You have to, if there's a new technology, how can we
Adapt it.
integrate it into our system? How can we? So, in fact, no curriculum that we follow, no curricula that we follow is the same every year. Year on year, it evolves because we are in that sort of a world.
And do you think, I think New York Academy was set up in 2016
Mm-hmm.
and with a motive to bring some different school or a pattern of schooling. Do you think that in India we moved forward?
That's the first question people ask me. What is progressive education? Why do you call it
Yes.
progressive? I said, because education as we know it, it's not whether it's American education or European or Cambridge. It's just all boards, right? Like of different kind. Even American education is redundant.
Yes.
What is
Mm-hmm.
progressive education? Progressive education uses best practices from everything. Okay, this is nice about Montessori, but this aspect of Montessori is actually applicable to today's world. This is nice about Reggio, and so that's best practice education, right? That's progressive. So a lot of people ask me, why do you shy away from traditional practices? I said, because traditional education as you know it came from the industrial era.
Yes.
You
Mm-hmm.
had textbooks and you had to learn formulas and you had to do assignments, and like why did you need to memorize things from a textbook? Because
Yes.
you were being equipped for assembly lines.
Yeah.
At New York Academy, we want to create thought leaders, change makers, and that's
Mm-hmm.
not going to come from assembly lines.
And do you think that there is a lack of teacher training programs?
There is a
Mm-hmm.
significant lack, which is why we have our own teacher training program. Anytime a teacher comes into our system, we have a program, a tie-up with NDNU from the US, which is now part of Stanford. And it's a 2-year program that they commit to, where they work evenings and weekends. We equip them with those credentials, because the kind of exposure they get, the kind of training they get to think out of the box, it's very important for progressive education.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You are a very passionate woman. You've had your ups and downs. and a lot of experiences along with the women around you. I have to definitely ask you this. What does because she can means to you?
Because she can. Actually, I was so drawn to the title of the show, like, because you can, because everybody can, because every woman is not just limited to being a wife, not just limited to being, a mom, not just limited to being a daughter. There's so much more, and you should nurture every interest of yours, every passion of yours, and really see how that can make a difference to today's world. And
Mhm.
you are capable of following your passion. You are capable of being a mother. You are capable of being a wife. And and you don't have to be compartmentalized, saying this is what you are, and you can. And that's the beauty of being a woman.
Wow, very, very well said. So now I have a very interesting section for you, which is a little fun segment. I'm going to ask you a few questions for fun. So you and Vishnu are seen together, like in a very happy picture, especially in the media and all. What are few couple of things that you think that you absolutely love about being his wife?
He's a guy who pampers me and says, hey, you know what? I want some me time with you. Let's go for a meal in Bombay or Delhi, or let's even fly to Dubai for that matter. Let's go.
Oh, wow. So that's
Uh,
your getaway.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
So that's our personal life. I think that's something, the spontaneity is something that I love about our relationship.
Very nice.
And how we're seen in public is that, it's this that we're seen as a unit. A lot of actors are not seen as units, but he never shied away from saying, this is my strength, this is my family, this is my wife, these are my children, and this is what I am.
How beautiful is that? And that's actually true. When I was researching about you, there are hardly any pictures of him alone or you alone for that matter. It's either two of you or all five of us,
All
six
six
of
of us,
you
yes.
together.
Yes.
What's your ultimate sinful pleasure food?
It has to be dessert. Like I have a major sweet tooth, and
Oh
chocolate,
my God. Uh-huh.
I can't.
Can't live without that.
I mean, after every meal, I need to have something sweet.
As an individual, you are a very emotional person, as you said, as well as spiritual when we were talking about. So what does your day, a normal day looks like?
We are a family that believes in eating together. That's like no
Nice.
matter what, we have to eat together. But because of course cannot be possible. So breakfast and dinners, we come together. So that's a family time in the morning. Then Vishnu takes the kids to school if he's around, or they go on their own. Like 10 a.m., I'm usually at the office until about
Mm-hmm.
6:30.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know where the day goes. People are coming like left, right, center. Everybody calls me Vinny. So they're, we need you for this. We need you for that. You have a call at this time. It's nonstop. And then I go
Mm-hmm.
back. And then it's again, we shut off until dinner is over, until the kids are getting ready for bed around 9 o'clock. It's time with them. We talk about
Mm-hmm.
silly things. If we have to watch something together, we'll watch something together, dinner. And then after they're done is when I take time for myself, whether it is listening to a spiritual message. See, for me, like there are a lot of people who have a dedicated prayer time. I feel that I'm always in a conversation with God. Like every time, every challenge during the day, that is one of my biggest strengths, that I feel
Wow.
like I'm not alone and I have
Mm-hmm.
a God that's equipping me to fight my battles. It's not a one time that I pray at this time, I pray at that time. If there is something unbearable, I'll go into that thing where I sit down and I'm like in a quiet room and then I pray. But otherwise, it's through the day. I think it's a conversation with God that I'm having through the day. And then
That's
I
very
told
interesting.
evening is before I sleep, all my browsers are open. I start making notes to do for the next day. And
Mm-hmm.
I do a little bit of research because I can only focus when it's quiet.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What one skill that you would like to learn in 2024?
I'm a disaster in the kitchen. That's one thing I cannot do. If you ask me if I was on an island alone and can I survive? Yes, I can. But if I had the time, I would like to like maybe dabble in the kitchen a little bit more.
Okay. Very interesting. I think that was the only thing which was left to talk about.
Yes.
I had a great time chatting with you, Veronica. I just did not feel that we were talking to the Veronica Manchu, who is very successful as an entrepreneur, as a wife, as a mother. And I'm sure and I congratulate for the things that you already have and all the best for the things that you're going to give to India as a whole. And thank you so much for being there on our show.
Thank you so much for having me, Neha, and it was a pleasure talking to you.